Hey guys, Zach here. Over the last couple of years, I've worked with over 600 entrepreneurs now, and I've noticed a trend. Raising prices can be a very scary thing for most entrepreneurs and business owners, and very few of them know that there's a right and a wrong way to do it. So today I'm going to show you the data-driven way to test price increases so you can grow your margins, protect your sales volume, and avoid making costly pricing mistakes. So whether you run a service business or a product business, this process works. And by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly how to raise your prices in a systematic, data-driven way. So for one, why does pricing matter so much? Really, pricing is one of your biggest levers in your business, and it directly impacts how profitable you can be without increasing your workload. So what I mean by that is businesses, you have to understand, have both fixed and variable cost. Fixed costs, so that could be your rent, it could be software expenses. They stay the same no matter how many sales you make. This is actually where economies of scale comes from. Whereas variable costs could be potentially salaries, it could be materials, it could be commissions. They increase the more that you sell. So the more products that you're moving or the more of those service contracts you're fulfilling, the more these costs go up. Price increase improves the margin on every sale, meaning more revenue goes towards profit. So a golden example of this is half of your conversion rate but at double the price. Imagine that you double the price of your product and your conversion rate drops by half. On paper, your revenue would stay exactly the same, but your profit margin would skyrocket. And this is why. So you're literally doing half the work, half the customers at service, or half the products being sold. So your variable cost would drop by 50%, your fixed cost doesn't change. And this basically creates a much better ratio of cost to revenue. And that way you're freeing up more of your budget, your resources to scale the top of your marketing funnel. So some key takeaways, even if sales volume dips, the right price increase can actually increase your overall profit and free up capacity for growth. This is where the data-driven model comes in. You need to understand your baseline metrics before you start increasing your pricing. So the key metrics you need to know are, for one, what is your actual conversion rate, either on your sales or your marketing? Because that's going to be your number one key metric where you need to see how that does in relation to new price. Then on top of that, you need to understand your average order value or AOV, your customer acquisition cost or CAC, and then your gross and net margins. So without this baseline data, you won't know if a price change helps or hurts. So first, we're going to start by taking a small measurable increase in the price. So this could be 10 to 20%. And you want to start lower to reduce the risk, but you can always go higher in the future. And you want to choose a controlled test period. So basically, you're keeping all other variables consistent, very similar to scientific method you probably learned in high school. So you are basically keeping a control variable and you are modifying only that. So next, you're going to track your metrics throughout the experiment. So let's say that you do a 1-month experiment where you are doing a 20% increase in cost. You need to measure your conversion rate and see if it changes. Does it go up? Does it go down? As well as you'd want to measure your revenue per customer and your profit margin per sale. At that point, you're going to compare against the baseline data. So for one, did your overall revenue rise or fall? How did that compare to the actual number of either product sold, customer serviced, and your general conversion rate? And did your profit margin improve? And then the last thing to think about is there a confounding variable? So now I would recommend going to the video description, and there's a link to an Excel worksheet that I'll be using in the rest of this video to go through some examples of how you can run a pricing experiment. I would recommend downloading it, and that way you can follow along with your own metrics. All right, so let's look at our example here. In order to do a relevant test of your pricing, you need to have your baseline metrics. So we're going to assume that this is an e-commerce company, and we're going to be tracking our visitors. Visitors are going to be driven by our marketing cost. So generally, that's going to stay a stable number for price testing. You don't want to change this number during your initial test. Then you have conversion rate. So how many of these visitors are converting into customers? Then you have average order value. Average order value is how much each of those customers that did convert spent on average with that order on your website, whereas variable cost per order is what were your expenses related to those orders. This could be shipping, this could be salaries, could be anything that goes up or down based on the number of orders that you have. Marketing costs, so this is just going to be how much you spent on marketing that time period. And then fixed cost, so this is going to be things like your rent for a warehouse. All of these things pretty much can apply to a service business as well. So visitors, you might sub that out for number of leads, but generally you're going to have some high level funnel that is bringing you in your leads or your visitors or someone that is interested in doing business for you, and you're paying some sort of marketing or sales dollars for it. So now let's run our first experiment. Let's say that we're going to increase our price by 10%. So we've increased that by 10% across the board generally. Fixed costs, we're going to say that that stays the same. Marketing should also stay the same because we don't want to change that during our experiment. Visitors, so Conversely, we're going to keep that the same. And then conversion rate, this is what's going to change in relation to your AOV, or your increase in price. So let's say that drops from 3% to 2.8%. All right, so let's go to the results tab here. Here you can see visitors stays the same, but the number of orders has now changed. So we've lost 20 orders in this time period. Now we need to consider, was that a good or a bad thing? So if we go down here, we can see that there was a increase in revenue. So it went from 30,000 to 30,800. So additional 800 in revenue there. Your variable cost went down because of the reduction in orders. Let's say that we saved 900 there. That is assuming a linear reduction in variable cost. Oftentimes is not linear, but you do need to monitor it. And that way you can go and run the numbers for yourself and your own business. And then we could see over here that our net profit increased from 500 to 2,200. So that means that we made an additional 1,700 in profit from this. This would be a success. Now let's talk about like the golden example of this and why you would want to increase your prices. So let's say that you doubled your prices. So let's go to 200 here, and you had half the conversion rate, and we kept everything else the same. So in this case, revenue doesn't change. We still made only 30,000, but we'd half the customers, half the variable cost. Thus, we ended up with an additional 6,750 in profit compared to our baseline. Again, this is the golden example of this. It's what you would really like hope to achieve, and this is why. Because now you can take this additional profit and dump it into more marketing. So let's say that you increase your marketing now, you put that 6,000 of that 6,750 in marketing cost in there. So we're up to 12,000. Let's say that we double this. So we have doubled our marketing costs. We've doubled our number of visitors. We're keeping now the price and the conversion rate the same. Now we've gone from our original baseline being 500 to now we're doing 24,000 in additional profit. And we're back up to the same number of orders that we had before at a lower conversion rate, but with way more top of the funnels. As you can see, this is a very powerful lever if you can increase the price, take a lower conversion rate as long as you are increasing your profitability, and then increase the top of the funnel. So just to do another example, let's go and show a bad example. So what would the metrics look like if things did not go well? Let's say that we had increased our price by that 10%, but instead of dropping it to 2.8, let's say that it dropped down to 2.2%. Like you had a huge price move or conversion rate movement from a small increase in price. Now we could see here that we had 80 less customers. We did decrease our variable cost by 3,600. However, we had 5,800 less revenue. So that means that we actually made $2,200 less than before. So as you can see here, our calculator does not approve of this. And it is something where if you have metrics like this, you want to take a step back quickly and then reassess why you think that conversion rate change happened. So let's talk about our results. So realistically, you need to be measuring if your experiment was a success or a failure in intervals where you have enough data to make that conclusion. So that might look like 2 weeks of data, it might look like 1 month of data, but you want to be collecting it in real time and making these assessments. If a test is successful, you would want to then stabilize for a little bit, keep the prices the same, and then you would want to rerun the test at a higher price. And you keep doing this until you've hit a point of diminishing returns or until you've actually just straight up failed a experiment and you need to roll it back to the previous pricing. If your test fails, you've got to go and investigate why it failed. So it might be that there's not enough perceived value in your offering. It could be where you have competitors who are undercutting you with the same perceived value, or could it be something else where there's a messaging disconnect as well? But sometimes there's just no additional room in the market for an increase in price. Some common pitfalls to avoid. So you don't want to make too large of a jump at one time. 5 to 20% is generally your golden range for a price increase. Whereas if you're making a 50% increase in one go, you could actually disrupt your entire business and it's just not a good idea. Pricing is one of the most powerful levers in your business, but only if you pull it in the right way. Remember, a small strategic price increase can actually have a massive impact on profit if you use the data to guide your decision. If you found this helpful, hit that like button, subscribe for more strategies to grow and scale your business. If you want me to personally help you analyze your pricing and profit potential, head to zacharysens.com and you could book a one-on-one consultation with me today. Let's make sure every sale that you make puts more profit in your pocket.